We had some fun playing with the revolution tool in the last few videos. Let's go back to our extrusion tool and let's try to make a sword. Let's go to New, Standard Part, and let's start a new sketch. And I want to start with the blade of a sword. So let's go to the top plane, this XZ plane, and make sure top isn't vertical. Make sure it's horizontal so you can read it left to right, and grab your line tool. And if you imagine what the blade of a sword looks like from the top, it looks kind of like a diamond shape. And so let's sketch that out. Don't worry about making it perfect. Just sketch out a quick sort of diamond shape. Make sure you get that green dot. And hopefully you can look at this and see what I mean from this diamond shape. And once you've got the general outline, let's go back in and make it perfect. And to do that, let's use a new tool. We're going to go up here into our ribbon on the top right and find our construction tool. And make sure you still have your line tool selected. I want you to connect the left corner of your diamond to the right corner of your diamond. And you'll notice that we have this dotted line. This is called a construction line. Do the same thing from the top corner to the bottom corner of your diamond. And again, you'll see that this is a dotted line, not a solid line. And so what are these construction lines used for? Well, they're really cool because they allow you to manipulate your 2D geometry without affecting your 3D features when you finish your sketch. And so I'm going to hit right-click OK. And I want to make sure these construction lines are vertical and horizontal. And so let me grab my vertical constraint and let me click on this line going up and down. And it'll either make it vertical or it'll let you know that you already have a vertical line. If that happens, just hit cancel. I'm going to try the same thing with my horizontal line. I'll go to my horizontal constraint and select this line. And again, it'll either tell you the line is already horizontal or it'll correct it for you. I also want to make these edges equal. So I'm going to go up here to my equal constraint. And I'm going to tell these left sides to be equal. And I'm going to tell the bottoms to be equal. And I'll tell the right sides to be equal. And you'll notice it tells me that I'm over constraining the sketch. And so it looks like making these three equal made it impossible for this one not to be equal. No big deal. So now we have all four sides of our diamond shape equal. We'll go to right click OK. And the next thing I want you to do is go to your point tool and put a point down right at the intersection of these two construction lines. Grab the coincident tool and tell this point to be coincident with the origin. Right click OK, and then we just need to tell it its size. So let's go to dimension. Let's go from the left side all the way to the right side, and let's tell it to be 3 inches wide. I'll zoom in and I'll go from the bottom to the top. And I want to tell it to be 0.75 tall. And then I'm going to finish my sketch, and I want to extrude this shape. And so I'm thinking about how long the blade of a sword will be. I'm going to tell this to be about 30 inches. And I'll zoom out so I can see what I'm looking at here. And okay, if you look at it, it kind of looks like a blade, but let's make it look a little bit more realistic. And to do that, let me show you a new tool in your extrusion feature. It's called the taper. So if you see that gray circle right there, click on it. And now we can change the angle in which it extrudes out. So we can make it wider, or we can bring it in and make it narrower so it kind of becomes this sort of sharp shape. And so we can go from distance to taper in here, or we can go from distance to taper over here. I'm going to click on it over here. And I'm going to tell it to be, I don't know. Let's see what happens if I make it 10 degrees. You can see it gets very wide. And so it extrudes up 30 inches, but it extrudes out at this 10-degree angle. And if I want to go the other direction, I can type in a negative. I could say, let's just say -1 and see what happens. You can see it goes inward. It has this inward taper. I want it to go out, but I want it to be really small. Let's try 1 degree out. And that still doesn't really look realistic. It doesn't look like a sword. Let's try making it 0.5 degrees. And if I look at that, it kind of looks like a sword. Let's hit OK. But we need that sharp point on the end. So let's right click on this top face and hit New Sketch. But instead of grabbing our line tool and trying to sketch out another diamond shape for ourselves, let's go up here to our Project Geometry tool. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to turn on previous geometry in the sketch. And so I want to hover until I see the entire area of this shape highlighted and click. And so now I have that previous shape sketched out for me. I'm going to go to Finish Sketch, and I'm going to hit Extrude again. This time I don't want it to come up 30 inches. This time I just want it to go up 5 inches. So let me delete this and type in 5. And I don't want it to extrude outwards this time. This time I want it to come in to get that sharp point. And so let's type in -5 and see what happens. And it turns it in. It kind of looks like a sword, but it doesn't really have that point. And so let's double that. Let's make it -10. And oh wow, that actually looks really good. And so we got our blade of our sword. Let's hit OK. And so then all we really need is the handle. So let's go to the bottom. And we'll start a new sketch down here. And let's rotate the view cube so bottom is turned left to right. And let's zoom in and grab our rectangle tool. Now you'll notice when I try to draw my rectangle where the handle should be over my shape that I've already extruded, it kind of highlights these previous shapes that I already have. What it's trying to do is trying to project this geometry. My selection tool is trying to magnetize those lines. If I do, it'll lock my shape onto those lines. I don't want that, so I'm going to sketch it over here to the top left, and I'll center it in a second after I'm done dimensioning it. It's very important that this is not a construction line rectangle because you can't extrude a construction line. And so if you had construction lines still turned on, your rectangle will look like this. We can't use that to extrude anything. If I finish my sketch and I try to extrude that rectangle, I can extrude this one because it's a regular rectangle. But since this one used construction lines, your 3D features do not recognize it as an actual shape. And so I'm going to hit cancel, and I'm going to go back into this sketch, turn this sideways and zoom in, and I'm going to delete this construction line rectangle for myself. And let's add these dimensions to this rectangle. And so I want this rectangle to be 5 inches wide, and I want it to be 1 inch tall. And again, make sure this rectangle is not made out of construction lines. And then to center this rectangle, let's use construction lines again. So I'll turn on construction lines, go to my line tool, and I want to find the center of my rectangle here from bottom to top. Once you see that green dot, click and drag over here and get that other green dot. And so this line should be a construction line, but your rectangle should not be. And let's do the same thing from the other way. Let's find this center, get that green dot, click and drag, get that other green dot and click, right click OK. And I'm going to find my point tool and put it down right here in the center. And I want to tell this center point to be coincident with the origin. And so now we have a fully constrained rectangle. Let's finish sketch, go to extrude, and I want to extrude this to be 1 inch with no taper or a 0 degree taper, and hit OK. And so if we look at what we got so far, we're almost done. We just need the grip on our handle. So I'm going to start a sketch on this bottom face, and I'll turn it sideways so I can read bottom left to right and zoom in. And to draw our handle, let's go underneath rectangle, and let's find our center to center slot, which is a pretty cool tool. But if you notice when I hover over the previous shape, it tries to project those lines. It tries to lock onto these previous lines. So let's go off to the bottom right or anywhere off to the side here, and let's draw this slot. And to draw it, let's click and drag to the right, and then click again. And then click a third time, and we can draw this slot. I'm going to right click and hit OK. And let's give this slot some dimensions. I'm going to click dimension and click on this line, drag it down. And I want this slot to be 0.75 inches wide. And if it moves to the center, don't worry about it. Right click OK. You can click and drag it and move it back where you want it. Hit dimension again. I want it to be up and down, a dimension of 0.5. Right click OK. And then all we need to do is center it. So go to our coincident constraint. I'm going to click on this dot and click on the origin. And now we've got it fully constrained on here. We can finish our sketch. Hit extrude and tell it to go 8 inches down. Hit enter. And let's look at what we got. And it looks like we got a pretty cool looking sword. Make sure you save it. I'm just going to call it sword. Hit save. And we are done with this shape.